This is a 9-part lecture series on Indochina's history from the days of primitive communism to modern times, and this will be in Volume 3, Communism in East Asia, next year's ABCs of Communism, Bolshevism 2018. Our first lecture is going to be on Indochina's primitive communism, and then we will move on into the slave stage. We'll go through the transitional stage of chiefdoms and the slave stage and the feudal stage. We'll come up to the modern struggle for socialism, the transitional stage, and we'll be covering the countries of Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar or Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia in particular, all throughout this entire thing. So I'll try to keep you focused on which sites, archaeological sites, are coming from what country as we go along, because the dates vary greatly. In terms of general dates, Indochina as an area was occupied by 2 million years ago. So when we use the definition that we're using in this textbook, the division between Homo erectus and Homo sapiens at 1 million years ago, you can see that we're going to have, in that 2 million year period, both Homo erectus and Homo sapiens. So we have not only socio-cultural evolution through the band stages, but we have physical evolution of Homo through its erectus and sapiens stages. So with that comment, let me just say that Indochina's primitive communism in Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia formed an early Paleolithic geographic zone that was the gateway for movement of Homo populations, both erectus and sapiens, into and out of East Asia and island Southeast Asia. And the environments and resources they encountered shaped their adaptations via their cultural technology and social organization, and herein I synthesize the evidence for the early human occupations of the region beginning over 2 million years ago and continuing through the Upper Pleistocene, and we'll begin with Vietnam. And at this point we're going to switch over to the map for a few minutes. Early Indo-Chinese primitive communism begins by 2 million years ago when we take in the entire area. With regard to Vietnam, in 2017, the Vietnam Academy of Social Sciences announced in Hanoi that stone tools and tektites as old as 0.8 to 0.5 million years had been discovered, and travelers to Vietnam should soon be able to visit such sites in An Khê, a town in the country's central highlands, Gia Lai province. Now, Gia Doi, deputy director of the Institute of Archaeology under the Academy, said that in 2014, during the implementation of a ministry-level scientific project, 5 very early human sites have been discovered by archaeologists, and the sites lie on the most ancient deposits on the Ba River terraces, themselves formed about 1 million years ago. During 2015 and 2016, excavation and examination of these sites got underway. Artifacts recovered include picks, choppers, scrapers, flakes, unifacial and bifacial tools, and hand axes made from quartzite and quartz pebbles. The 5 early Paleolithic sites locations in An Khê are located with similar artifacts distributed in closed areas. Some artifacts were found in the same layer. The typical tools include triangular pointed tools, concave edged and pointed tools, hand axes, and bifaces. Most were made from big quartz pebbles with coarse striking scars. This bifacial striking technique has been found in many countries in Eurasia with a date of 1.4 million to 300,000 years ago. Now, the cultural remains, according to the periodization used in this text, may be Homo erectus or Homo sapiens, or a form in transition between these two. The dividing line of 1 million years BP between the two is arbitrary, and a transition had to have occurred. In An Khê, the facial pebble striking technique lies in the sediment of the Middle Pleistocene about 0.8 to 0.5 million years ago. This finding therefore adds a location to the map of global bifacial industries in the world and affirms a beginning of hominid occupation in Vietnam by at least 0.8 to 0.5 million years ago. Now, as to an overview of sites and excavations, In June 2014, scientists from the Archaeological Institute, that's in Vietnam, worked in a VASS level research project. That project was called the Study of the System of the Stone Age Archaeological Sites in the Upper Area of Ba River, GLI Province, and it found 5 Paleolithic sites in An Khe, as we've seen in GLI Province. In late 2014, the International Cooperation Program for the Study of Vietnam Prehistory examined these sites. This ICP program was implemented by the Institute of Archaeology of the Vietnam Academy of Social Sciences and the Novosibirsk Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and the ICP lasted from 2015 and it will until now, and it will continue through 2019. Now, in November 2015, the Go Da site was excavated for the first time. In March 2016, the excavation in Go Da was expanded to explore the Roc Tung site under an excavation permit of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism. And in 2016, besides excavating the two above-mentioned sites, the Vietnamese-Russian archaeologists made new discoveries of early Paleolithic sites in An Khe. The preliminary results are collated herein. The excavation of Go Da site in An Bin precinct in An Khe town, and then I give the latitude and longitude location, is 421.5 meters above sea level along the right bank of the Ba River. It is 1 mile away from the bank of the Ba River, and in 2015, 20 square meters of that site were excavated. And in 2016, 4 more trenches were dug with a total area of 74 square meters. Now, as to the stratigraphy, the layer with traces of prehistoric people below modern cultivation and above the natural band layer is 10 centimeters to 25 centimeters thick, and the land at the cultural layer is type of alluvium weathered from granite mixed with pebble, grit, quartz, laterized, and diluvium in some places, and the cultural layer is preserved intact. In the trenches, 58 stone tools were found. They include 9 picks, 5 choppers, 9 scrapers, 2 hammerstones, 6 flake tools, 2 amorphous cord tools, 12 flakes, and 12 stone cores. Now, most of these tools were made of quartz. The choppers were made from a crude big pebble. The big picks were made of quartz cores, and the scrapers were made of small flakes. 21 tektite pieces were also found in the cultural layer containing stone tools. This means the tektite pieces fell from space when the cultural layer was being formed. Now, as for the excavation of the Roc Tung site in 2016, the Archaeology Research Group excavated 2 of 12 locations. Namely, these were Roc Tung 1 of 48 square meters and Roc Tung 4 with an area of 20 square meters. And these 2 locations are located on the same hill at 440 meters above sea level along the left bank of the Ba River and about 2.5 kilometers away from the bank. The cultural layers at Roc Tung 1 and Roc Tung 4 are the same average depth of 30 to 35 centimeters and intact. The stratigraphy in Roc Tung is quite similar to the Go Da site. In the Roc Tung 1 excavation trench, 46 stone artifacts were found, and these include 7 picks, 1 unifacial tool, 2 scrapers, 1 chopper, 18 worked pebble pieces, 13 stone cores, and 4 flakes. In Roc Tung 4, 77 stone artifacts were found, and these include 1 pick, 4 scrapers, 1 hammerstone, 1 chopper, 14 stone cores, 23 flakes, and 33 worked stone pieces. In the Roc Tung 1 location, there are also 102 tektite fragments. In Roc 4 site, there are 25 tektite fragments found in the layer containing the stone tools. Now, the research group also took surveys on a number of sites, including newly discovered Roc Dep in Cu An commune. These found 2 hand axes at the Roc Jiao and Roc Lan sites, together with the 2 hand axes previously found in Roc Tung and Go Da. The collection contains 4 hand axes, which are typical of early Paleolithic hand axes in other parts of the world. Now, researchers found 11 early Paleolithic locations located around the Roc Tung area, collectively a complex of sites in the valley of Xuan An commune, An Khe town. These are residence and stone tool production sites. No human or animal bones have been found in these open-air sites, and on the surface of the cultural layer of Rock Tung 1 there are many quartz fragments and river pebbles. The stone tools were made of quartzite or silicon sediment river stream pebbles. These were the raw materials for making the stone tools, and the residential area was high enough to avoid mud in the rainy season. Direct percussion made the chopper chopping tools. Some crude flaked tools, scrapers and cutting tools, came from splitting flakes off of big cores. Diagnostic tool types include large picks with a triangular shaped cross-section and unifacial tools. The bifacial tools, especially the hand axes, were made with sophisticated techniques and give a beautiful appearance. They are perfect Acheulean hand axes. Therefore, the Anke stone tool assemblage has both the chopper chopping tools of East Asia, including the trihedral picks and bifaces found in Anke, and hand axes. The latter are typical of the Western world early Paleolithic. In this regard, the collection of stone tools in Anke is different and older than the currently known collection of the early Paleolithic tools in Vietnam, specifically older and different from Nui Do at Ta Noa and Xuan Loc at Tong Nai. On the other hand, the Anke collection is similar to the early Paleolithic tools in Baizhou, Guangxi, China, with dates of 800,000 years BP. For an absolute Anke date, we await the results of the optically stimulated luminescence method, OSL. Now, Vietnamese, Russian experts have relied on the relative dating of the site complex in Anke, that is, from the fact that the Anke archaeological sites lie on the oldest layer of the Ba River that dates from the early Pleistocene about 1 million years ago, and on the date of textites falling down to the earth that belonged to Australia. An Indonesia-strewn field that dates around 770–800,000 years BP. There is an absolute date on the tektites taken on over 20 tektite samples in Vietnam. These tektite samples were taken from the old layer of the Ba River in Chio Rio and the layer in Anke, and have a date of 770,000 years. Thus, the date of stone artifacts from Anke is at least the same or even older. A comparison of the typology of stone tools in Anke with early sites in Korea, India, and China leads some researchers to think that the stone artifacts discovered in Anke are even older. Therefore, these stone artifacts and their date at the Anke sites might correspond with the Homo erectus period. At any rate, the makers of these tools were definitely direct ancestors of Homo sapiens. Natural selection everywhere was acting in favor of increasing brain size because of the reproductive advantage conferred by humanity's use of culture, that is, technology, social organization, and ideology. Accordingly, multiple global transitional locations for erectus to sapiens had to have occurred. Now, discoveries of the early Paleolithic sites in Anke are evidence that the upper Ba River in Anke was the residential area of a prehistoric community around 800,000 years BP. This is temporarily the oldest currently known starting point for the appearance of human and cultural relics in Vietnam's territory. Now, in 2013-2014, archaeologists identified 13 Paleolithic sites in Kibang and Dak Po districts, as well as Anke town in the highlands area of the Ba River in GLA province. 5 of these sites are from the early to middle Paleolithic. These are Goda, Rock Tung, Rock Harong, Rock Giao, and Rock Lon. Stone artifacts found from these sites are in sediments of the Middle Pleistocene. Most of them were made of quartz and quartzite. The typical forms are hand axes, bifaces, and pointed tools. Now, advanced primitive communism of hunting-gathering tribes are what we're looking at in the late Paleolithic sites that are also identified with anticipated dates between 80,000 and 30,000 BP. In addition, there are other sites considered to be late Paleolithic, such as Ro Village, Loc Village, Village 3, Tu Lurong, Soi Tre, Ong Do, On Phong, and Village 2. The collections of stone artifacts from these sites come from distinct strata and include end choppers, side choppers, scrapers, and pointed tools similar to the tools from the Son V industry in North Vietnam, and the researched sites cover an area of almost 4,000 square meters, including the three districts of Cabang, Dak Po, Kong Cho, as well as An Khe Town. Geographically, the area is located in the lower subregion of An Khe in the Central Highlands. It is a transitional area between the Pleiku Highland and the coastal plain area of Binh Dinh Province. Now, advanced primitive communism in the Upper Paleolithic is what we're looking at with the late Paleolithic artifacts discovered in the Upper Ba River, including 8 locations: Ro Village, Lock Village, Ba Village in Cabang, Tu Lurong, Soi, Tre, Ong Du, and On Phong in Dak Po, and Village 2 in An Khe Town. And at that point, I'm going to stop for a moment. We can leave this map. Those advanced primitive communism Upper Paleolithic sites are distributed in a larger area than the early Paleolithic locations. They all are located in high mounds, which used to be the ancient river terrace of the Ba River. Most of the artifacts were found on the ground. Very few of the strata of the site are still well preserved, and in these sites, stone tools were made from river pebbles, of which one face was struck to make an edge. Some edges were also retouched. Most of them were made of relatively big-sized quartz or granite pebbles. The typical tools include side choppers, end chopper, pointed tools, knives, and flake tools. Comparing the early and late Paleolithic tools in the Upper Ba River area, we see similarities and differences. Stone tools in both early and late Paleolithic sites were made from river pebbles, yet the size of the early ones is bigger than that of the later ones. In the early Paleolithic, most of the tools were produced from quartz, whereas in the late Paleolithic they were mainly produced from quartzite and basalt. Although the striking of pebbles made the tools in both times, the late Paleolithic tools were made with smaller striking scars and retouched. Typical early Paleolithic tools are bifacial, triangular pointed tools, hand axes, flaked tools, and the unifacial striking tools include side choppers, end choppers, convergence edged tools, and sometimes surround struck pebbles, and these make up the majority of the late Paleolithic tools. When carrying out investigations of layers in Goda sites, we found San V-like side choppers in the first layer, the late one, and triangular pointed tools, as well as bifaces in the second layer, that is the earlier layer. The late Paleolithic tools in the Upper Ba River are close to the pebble tools found in the laterite layer of long-laying sites and the tools of the San V culture of the late Paleolithic. So you have a good continuity of cultural development there. The Upper Late Paleolithic area is the latest of the 3 periods of the Paleolithic, about 40,000 to 14,000 years ago. The Nguam Lithic complex, recovered in the Nguam rock shelter in Bak Tai, has stone tools from the Middle Paleolithic period. Stone tools were discovered in open-air sites and caves. The stone industry in Nguam Lithic period played an important role in the division of the continuous pebble transition into artifacts of San V and Hoa Binh cultures. The earliest record of humans in Vietnam is from an archaeological site on Do Mountain in the northern Thanh Hoa province. The remains discovered there have been dated to Lower Paleolithic or Early Stone Age. So far, all early human remains unearthed in the Democratic Republic of Vietnam are invariably in association with limestone cliff dwellings. The tools are made of basalt rather than fluid. Archaeological excavations have shown that between 7,000 and 5,000 years ago, 2 important Mesolithic cultures occupied northern Vietnam. These are the Hoa Binh and the Bach Sun cultures, named from the principal excavation sites in Tonkin. Refined stone implements and distinctive hand axes with polished edges, known as Baxonian axes, are diagnostic of both cultural assemblages. And the early inhabitants of Vietnam were probably of the small, dark-skinned Melanesian or Austronesian stock. Now, a closer look at the Paleolithic locations in the Upper Ba River drainage in 2013 and 2014 showed archaeologists 13 Paleolithic sites at Kebong, Dakpo districts, and Anke town in the Highlands area of Ba River GLI province, and 5 of these sites have been considered to be from the early Middle Paleolithic, and then I list them. The stone artifacts found from these sites lay in sedimentary layers of the Middle Pleistocene, and most were mainly made of quartz and quartzite. Typically they are hand axes, bifaces, and bipointed tools. And in addition, there are the sites considered to be late Paleolithic, and then I list those: Roe Village, Lock Village, Village 3, and so forth. The collections of the stone artifacts found from these sites lie in distinct layers, and they include end choppers, side choppers, scrapers, pointed tools, similar to the tools from the Son V industry in North Vietnam. While carrying out fieldwork in 2013 and 2014, researchers of the Institute of Archaeology discovered 13 locations of the Paleolithic in Kabang District, Dakpo District, and Anke Town. There are 5 early Paleolithic locations in the Upper Ba River, in GLI province, with fossils in Vietnam I classify as Homo sapiens, in Tom Cuyen and Tom Hay caves with radiometric dates of 500,000 years ago. These are late Paleolithic sites in the Upper Ba River where we have learned about the Son V industry. It was distributed in the middle of the Phu Tho province along riverbanks in northern Vietnam, and these are sites featuring the pebble striking technique. Previous locations for the Son V culture were in Long Lang and Plei Krong. Now we can see the Son V industry was widespread, together with other Son V-like sites found in Kua, in Quang Tri province, and Tran Quoc Vuong in 1993, and Traveo in Quang Ngai province, and Phan Ton Tuan in 2013. That whole bunch constitute a group. Now, a group of late Paleolithic sites featuring pebble striking techniques in the transitional area between the highlands and the coastal plain area of central Vietnam, and these are descendants of the early Paleolithic toolmakers in this region. In the Upper Ba River, the early Paleolithic locations in An Khe are all located within the area of the late Paleolithic ones. This enables us to study the first settlement and subsistence patterns of humanity as their adaptations to environments of the Middle to late Pleistocene were underway. Now, these early and late Paleolithic tools help us understand the way gathering and hunting evolved. That evolution is a premise for other important discoveries in the Central Highlands. For example, it is possible that Paleolithic tools made of fossilized wood in the Central Highlands will be found with remains of Homo erectus and Homo sapiens under the volcanic ash and basalt layers that are several tens of meters in total depth. Now, moving on to the country of Laos, in the Cave of the Monkeys, Tom Pa Ling, in the Annamite Mountains in northeastern Laos, we have an archaeological site situated at the top of Pa Hang Mountain, 3,840 feet above sea level, where there are 3 hominid fossils discovered from the cave. TPL-1 is a skull belonging to an anatomically modern human. TPL-2 is a mandible with both modern and archaic traits, and TPL-3 is a partial mandible with both modern and archaic traits. These fossils exhibit a mix of archaic and anatomically modern human traits. Modern human features of a developed chin, but without a robust mandible. The archaic human feature is of a broad anterior mandibular arch. Now, luminescent states from the 70,000 to 48,000 years ago show us that humans had migrated to Southeast Asia by at least 70,000 BP. Moving on to Burma, or Myanmar, from 750,000 to 275,000 years BP, Lower Paleolithic people of the early Anyathian culture lived along the bank of the Ayeyawadi River. These people evolved from 275,000 to 25,000 years BP into the Lower Paleolithic of the late Anyathian culture that lived on the Ayeyawadi River. From 13,000 BP, Upper Paleolithic people lived in the Badalin Caves, situated in the Yawagan Township in southern Shan. Archaeological evidence shows us that in Myanmar, Homo sapiens had lived as early as 750,000 years ago. By 13,000 BP, they had evolved into Stone Age culture called the Anyathian, and that culture is named after the Central Dry Zone Anyathian period. It is the locale with archaeological sites where plants and animals were eventually domesticated and polished stone tools appear. These people were leaving broad-spectrum wild resource hunting and gathering and entering a period of reliance on cultivation of plants and penned animals. Now, moving on to Thailand. The prehistoric human occupation of Thailand begins by 1 million years ago. We know this from the fossils and stone tools found in northern and western Thailand. In 1999, Somsak Premkit found skull fragments of what he considered Homo erectus in Koka, Lampang, comparable to the skull of Sangiran II man found in Java, dating 800,000 to 400,000 years ago, as well as Peking man. Now, the archaeological site in Lampang, northern Thailand, the Homo fossils of Lampang man date 1 million to half a million years ago. Stone tools of that period occur in Kanchanburi, Uban Ratchathani, Nakhon Si Thammarat, and Lop Buri, if those names mean anything to some of you that may have been over there during the Vietnam War period. These early hominid fossils could be Homo erectus or Homo sapiens, as the dividing line of 1 million years is, as I've said, arbitrary, and the essential diagnostic must always be cubic centimeter cranial capacity. One skull apparently has a lesser cranial capacity than that of sapiens. Now, these humans used fire as an important tool, and it's in their hunter-gatherer means of subsistence, and they lived in the mouths of caves near streams or other water supplies. Their main natural enemies included the giant hyena, Hyena sinensis, the saber-toothed tiger, the orangutan, and the giant panda. Ha Van Tan has outlined in his paper a definition of a lithic technology that occurred before the Wabinian. He found primitive flakes and stratigraphy below the Wabinian pebble tools across several sites in Southeast Asia that led him to name the flake technology Nguomian. Nguomian is named after a large assembly of flakes found at the Nguom rock shelter in Bac Thai province in Vietnam. Wabinian technology he believes to be a continuation of this Sondian technology. At any rate, prehistoric cave paintings have been found in these locales dating to 10,000 years ago. Moving on to Cambodia, the earliest traces of human presence in Cambodia have been found at the Luang Spian, a cave in Battambang province, and in 2009, archaeological research of the Franco-Cambodian Prehistory Project documented a cultural sequence from 70,000 BP to the Neolithic with clear evidence of a Wabinian cultural presence. Now, moving on to Malaysia and its early Paleolithic. In 2003, at Kota Kinabalu in the Mansuli Valley on Sabah's east coast, Lahad Datu district archaeologists uncovered the oldest human settlement in East Malaysia, tucked inside a forest reserve and accessible only by dirt road. Researchers found more than 1,000 stone tools dating to 235,000 years ago. And the University of Malaysia and the Sabah Museum jointly conducted that work. They are also currently looking at other potential sites in the state's interior, Apien district in Keningau. The USM Center for Global Archaeological Research Director Professor Mokhtar Sadin said the evidence showed people settled in Sabah during the Paleolithic period earlier than previously thought. Before this, it was claimed the oldest human settlement, dating back to about 40,000 years in the Nia Caves near Miri Sarawak, was the oldest. So we can see that the Paleolithic has both an early and late manifestation in Malaysia. The professor said the new evidence showed that humans from Southeast Asian mainland came to Borneo when the Sunda Plain still existed. Also known as the Sunda Shelf, it is geologically an extension of the continental shelf of Southeast Asia, with the major landmasses being the Malay Peninsula, Sumatra, Borneo, Java, Madura, Bali, and their surrounding smaller islands. It covers an area of approximately 1.85 million square kilometers. Dr. Mokhtar said that when connected to other Paleolithic archaeological sites in Sabah, the Mansuli Valley site established that early humans had consistently made this part of Borneo their home. And USM lecturer Jeffrey Abdullah, who is part of the archaeology team, said they found the site by chance while working on the Semang Buat cave about a half-mile from the site. Quote, "We were walking to the cave when we found stone tools scattered and hidden among small rocks," unquote, said Jeffrey, who is pursuing a doctorate in archaeology at the university. Now, in the late Paleolithic, we have Baturong Cave in a group of limestone hills about 820 feet high, located in the middle of Ting Kayu Lake that dried up 12,000 years ago. This cave and the surrounding Ting Kayu Lake is one of the most important archaeological sites in Sabah. It was occupied by 25,000 years ago, and these early humans lived in the shores of Ting Kayu Lake before spreading out to the surrounding caves in the east coast of Sabah, to the Baturong Cave, the Madai Cave, and the Tapadong Cave after the lake dried up. And that takes us through the conclusion of the most recent archaeological evidence for early hunting and gathering, early primitive communism, and advanced primitive communism in the entire Indochina area,